One of the profound questions many people ponder is why we are here on Earth, experiencing this human existence. Answers often range from the Darwinian materialist paradigm, which posits no purpose beyond survival and reproduction, to an opposing, more mystical perspective that views this realm as a place to learn lessons in the infinite game of consciousness. Could ancient stories and wisdom teachings offer hints to this fundamental question? In this series of videos, we will explore the concept of polar myths. What is a myth? It could be argued that they are the collective equivalent of dreams. In the same way you may have a dream or hear a myth that is just entertaining or confusing and is easily forgettable, there can also be myths and dreams that unlock a deeper understanding of yourself and the way our world works. To someone trained in their contemplation, myths and dreams both use symbols as their way of communicating their deeper meaning, and there is a skill that is required to unlock these deeper aspects of both dreams and myths. If we choose to look at our reality as an infinite game of lessons, and we are tasked with discovering the deeper meaning to existence beyond the materialist paradigm, then myths and dreams become a useful tool to do this. The myth we will look at in this video is the Samudra Manthana, which is a Hindu myth also known as the churning of the ocean of milk. As a brief overview, the story consists of a battle between two sets of superhuman beings, the Devas and Asuras. When the Devas are weakened by Duravasa's curse, they must churn the ocean for Amrita, the source of immortality. Using Mandara as rod, Vasuki as rope, and Vishnu's Kurma avatar as a base, it produces 14 treasures, including a halala poison swallowed by Shiva, Lakshmi the goddess of abundance, Arvata the elephant mount of Indra, and Amrita, the divine nectar of immortality. The Amrita is then secured by Vishnu, disguised as Mohini, tricking the Asuras and offering the nectar only to the Devas to restore balance to the universe. This story can be found in places such as the Indian epic, the Mahabharata. The most famous depiction of the Samudra Manthana is the elaborate bas-relief carvings at Angkor Wat in Cambodia, spanning over 13,000 square feet and illustrating the gods and demons churning the ocean. Another iconic modern representation is the full-scale sculpture at the International Airport in Bangkok. In his book Gnosis, Tom Montalk proposes that a collection of myths from various cultures around the world can be grouped together as polar myths. These are narratives that delve into the fundamental nature of existence and the pivotal elements that shaped our reality. Montalk refers to this subset as polar mythology because it revolves around the central struggle between the poles of creation, essentially the battle between good and evil.
So polar mythology is this interesting signal that shows up in so many of the ancient myths. Primarily, it shows up in Judaism and Christianity as well, but it shows up primarily in Proto-Indo-European, Indo-European and Indo-Aryan, and also Hindu mythology. Because, those are all related. They all come from a common civilization. But the idea is, earlier when I mentioned the book Hamlet's Mill, it's the idea of these recurring symbols that show up in all these different myths that have to do with different things. For example, it has to do with the idea of magical artifacts that can alter reality. Mm-hmm. It has to do with artifacts that are associated with a vortex, like a singularity point from which things can manifest from outside this realm here into this realm. So it is kind of like a portal technology. It's that. It's also the idea that our timeline as we know it, like history as we know it, wasn't the original history. That something happened that turned reality upside down, and from which we therefore fell from another timeline or a higher reality into the current reality that we know, which is what we call the matrix control system.
Polar mythology features several recurring themes. Humanity's fall from a higher realm to a lower one. The world axes, symbolized by a pillar, mountain, cross, or tree. Dueling superhumans locked in a cosmic tug-of-war. A foundational element based upon which the world axis rests or depends. Vortex imagery and magical objects of plenty that can generate abundance or devastation based on how they are wielded. Cataclysmic disruptions or tilts of the world axis. The avenging hero, prodigal son, or innocent fool who topples corruption and restores equilibrium. These elements appear scattered throughout Grail lore, as well as in the myths of ancient Hindus, Scandinavians, Egyptians, Sumerians, Mesoamericans, and Chinese. In this video, we will explore the polar myth embedded in the Vedic tale of the Samudra Manthana, the churning of the Milky Ocean, and examine the core elements of polar mythology that manifest within it. Before we begin, let's explore the idea that myths can be interpreted as a dream a little further. Pauly Levy suggests that a dream is a projection of the mind for the purpose of potentially recognizing and thereby integrating its unconscious aspects. What if there is a deeper reality than the one that we experience with our five senses? One of the key discoveries in quantum physics is the observer effect, demonstrated in the famous double-slit experiment, where particles such as matter or light may behave either as a wave or a particle. They behave as a wave, creating an inference pattern when not measured, but collapse to particle-like behavior when observed. This suggests the observation influences the outcome. What if there is a being that is dreaming up all of reality in a wave-like form, and it is our participation through observation that creates reality? The aim of a dream is to integrate the unconscious aspects so that the dreamer can become whole. What if we are experiencing this as ourselves as it goes through this process?
When you contemplate quantum physics in a certain way, it's actually showing us how we're actually creating our experience of ourselves and our experience of the world each and every moment. And so I guess one way of starting the contemplation on quantum physics is that quantum physics, has really shown that the idea of that there's an objective world out there separate from us, that's false. That's an illusion. That's this nonsensical idea that doesn't have any correlate in reality.
Pauly Levy suggests that in a mutually reciprocal relationship, the physical dimension needs consciousness to organize and evolve, while consciousness needs the challenge and limitations of physical reality in order to grow and realize itself. Could these myths be pointing to something that quantum physics is starting to rediscover? Levy also suggests that in this dream, secrets are revealed to humanity just at the right moments to help us awaken. The Tibetan Buddhists call this terma.
And when I point out in my work that in Tibetan Buddhism, there are these things called the hidden treasures, the terma is the Tibetan word. And, one of the things that makes the new edition of the Quantum Revelation, it's different. There are a lot of things I've added to it, but one of the major things is I've really unfolded this idea of terma that, and the idea is it's not just in Tibetan Buddhism. I mean, it's really, nuanced and articulated very much in that tradition, but every spiritual tradition that I know of has the conception that there are these hidden treasures hidden within the multidimensional fabric of the universe and including within our minds.
Could discovering the deeper meanings of myths be a sort of terma? Let's now begin to explore the polar elements in the Hindu myth of Samudra Manthana. We have fallen from a higher to a lower realm. The first element in the collection of polar mythology is that each of the myths recount members of a meta-civilization that fell into 3D Earth incarnation. The Samudra Manthana myth begins with the sage Durvasa receiving a sacred garland as divine blessing from Lord Shiva, which he offers to Indra as a gesture of honor while the god rides his elephant, Iravata. Indra, in arrogance, places it on Iravata's trunk or head, but the elephant, irritated by its strong fragrance, discards and tramples it, offending Durvasa. Durvasa curses the Devas to lose their strength and fortune, following the Asuras, led by Bali, to defeat them and conquer the three worlds. Desperate, the Devas seek Vishnu's advice, who suggests allying with the Asuras to churn the ocean of milk for Amrita, the nectar of immortality, secretly assuring the Devas they will obtain it. If Pauly Levy is right, and we embrace the dreamlike nature of reality, could the fall from a higher world be the fall from spirit into the physical reality? And could the reason for this be to learn to become whole again after a mistake or moment of separation? Lord Shiva features prominently in this myth. Shiva is revered as the destroyer and transformer within the Trimurti or Trinity, alongside Brahma, the creator, and Vishnu, the preserver. Durvasa is considered an incarnation of Lord Shiva's wrath. He is a Hindu sage or rishi, but is known for his short temper, powerful curses, and ascetic lifestyle. It is interesting that Shiva, the god of transformation, and Durvasa, who is born from Shiva, are so integral to the fall from higher to lower realms. Indra, who is the god who is blamed for the fall from the higher worlds. He is the king of the Devas, a group of benevolent celestial beings or gods in Vedic and Hindu traditions, associated with light, order, and moral virtues. Indra is known for his battles against demons and his role in maintaining cosmic order. The Asuras are a class of powerful supernatural beings or demigods, often depicted as rivals to the Devas, embodying forces of chaos, ambition, and material power. To escape the lower worlds, the Devas must work with the Asuras to gain Amrita, the elixir of immortality. In many polar myths, a serpent wraps itself around the world axis. But what could the serpent represent? In various cultures, the snake symbolizes etheric energy, such as Kundalini. When misplaced, this energy keeps individuals trapped in the 3D world. But when activated and directed towards a higher purpose, it can generate the power needed for enlightenment. The Samudra Manthana myth centers on the Devas, or benevolent gods, and Asuras, the demonic forces, whose relationship evolves from enmity to an uneasy alliance and back to conflict in their quest for Amrita, or the nectar of immortality. The snake used as a churning rope is Vakusi, the king of serpents and devotee of Lord Shiva. The Devas hold his tail and the Asuras his head, wrapping him around Mount Mandara to churn the ocean for Amrita. Vasuki is often depicted coiled around Shiva's neck, symbolizing control over ego and time. Polar myth element 2. The world axis, represented by a pillar, mountain, cross, or tree. Polar myths feature a world axis, symbolizing that which lies at the heart of existence, the central fulcrum that moves and supports the manifested world. The world axis is also a metaphor for linear time. These symbols highlight a central rotational aspect connected with creation. Thus, the world axis encompasses not only space-time, but also the axis upon which space-time can rotate or pivot. This pivot point is the quantum aperture, the choice point, the moment of wave function collapse, the window of non-determinism, where timelines are in flux. Probable futures are arrayed around this quantum pivot point at various quantum angles. What separates one probable future from another is the quantum phase angle unique to each. The angle of the quantum phase depends on the war between the superhumans pulling on it. The two sides collaborate, using Mount Mandara as the churning rod and Serpent Vasuki as the rope, Devas pulling from the tail, Asuras from the head. When Mandara sinks, Vishnu's Kurma, tortoise avatar, supports it. The process releases deadly halala poison from Vasuki, affecting the Asuras with its fumes. Shiva swallows it to save creation, turning his throat blue. Mount Mandara is a mythical mountain in Hindu cosmology, often depicted as a massive golden peak, symbolizing strength, beauty, and spirituality. It plays a central role in the Samudra Manthana, where devas and asuras uproot it to use it as a churning rod, with Vasuki as the rope and Vishnu's Kurama avatar supporting it, to extract treasures from the ocean of milk. Polar myth element 3. Cataclysmic unhinging or skewing of the world axis. Polar myths share a common theme of disturbing the world axis through unwise interference with the foundation stone or object of plenty. Many researchers suggest this references the precession of the equinoxes. For example, the starry sky resembling a whirlpool or millstone as it rotates. However, Tom Montalk argues that this interpretation is limited. The precession of the equinox takes 25,920 years, and it happens that 25,900 years, the Platonic year, is approximately how long it takes light to travel between the Earth and the supermassive black hole at the centre of the Milky Way. This suggests a resonance between Earth and the galactic centre, whose frequency is inversely proportional to the Platonic year. Thus, the state of the world's soul may be interlocked with the electromagnetic, gravitational, or etheric resonance between Earth and the galactic centre. One of the most popular theories about the world's soul also comes from the Vedic scriptures and the Yuga cycle. The Yuga cycle describes how the world goes through 4 stages, representing the rise and fall of consciousness on the planet over the 25,920 year cycle. We are currently in the period of lowest consciousness, the Kali Yuga. Researcher Bebudev Misra describes the center of the universe and its effect on consciousness in his recent article, which is linked in the description to this video.
My feeling was that the black hole in the center of our galaxy, and in fact any other galaxy, is basically the galactic consciousness. It's a galactic soul which regulates all functions within the galaxy. It takes in information, takes in matter, and then it transforms it and gives it out in the form of radiation and plasma jets and supports galactic functions. Now, scientists also realize that the black holes are, the supermassive black holes at the center of galaxies are the central engines driving a galaxy. They refer to it as a central engine. And my sense is that it's consciousness which is doing all of that. That central engine is basically the galactic consciousness or the galactic soul, which is regulating everything within our galaxy. And the reason why we can't recognize it as being consciousness is because we neither have the mathematical tools to describe consciousness, we don't have the equations for consciousness, nor do we have any kind of a reference frame out there in space against which we can compare it. So we can't say that, okay, this behaves similar to that consciousness and therefore this is also consciousness. We can't say that because there's nothing out there in space that we already recognize as being consciousness. So that's why we are unable to recognize it as galactic consciousness. But if we go to the ancient wisdom, to the ancient teachings, to what our ancestors were telling us, then it becomes very clear that they were referring to the presence of a supreme conscious spirit at the center of our galaxy, which controls, which is involved not only in the creation of the galaxy, but also its continual evolution over time. And that's what I did in the article. I looked at a few examples from different traditions and cultures to argue that the supermassive black hole, or Sagittarius A star, as we call it, is actually galactic consciousness.
The cataclysmic unhinging or skewing of the world axis is represented by Mount Mandara sinking into the ocean due to its immense weight during the churning, causing cosmic instability and threatening to halt the process or engulf creation in chaos. Could this be when consciousness on Earth started to deviate away from the center of the galaxy during the Kali Yuga? This crisis was averted only by Vishnu's intervention as Kurama to realign and stabilize it. The emergence of halal poison further amplifies this cataclysm, poisoning the universe until Shiva contains it. Polar myth element 4. That which the world axis rests or depends upon, a foundational element, represented by a cubical stone, turtle, keystone, plug, cornerstone, or capstone. The second most important element in polar mythology is the foundation upon which the framework of creation depends. The meeting point is the quantum pivot point. Removing or disturbing this foundation causes the entire world to fall out of alignment. In Hindu and Mayan myths, the world pillar pivots atop the back of a turtle. Even in Native American myths, the turtle symbolizes the foundation of the world. But why turtles? In the work of Stan Tenen, Nassim Haramein, and Willa, hexagonal lattices form the substrate of reality, within which we find the flower of life and tree of life patterns.
The torus is the basic pattern that energy takes throughout the entire cosmos. The torus looks like a donut. The energy flows in through one end, circulates around the center, and exits out the other end. Like a whirlpool in a stream. It's made from the medium in which it exists, and is at the same time discrete within it. It's both distinct and unified, and demonstrates why something could appear separate from something else and from the field while still being connected to it. It's self-sustaining at every scale. Picture the eye of a hurricane. At the center of every torus is a point of stillness. The field is basically a sea of toruses, each one touching its 12 identical neighbors, like a stack of oranges. Connecting the center, or still point, of each torus with its nearest neighbors reveals equal non-physical lines of force, or vectors. It's what visionary inventor and futurist Buckminster Fuller called the vector equilibrium. When this balanced state of equilibrium is extended without boundaries, it reveals that infinite fabric of space-time that Fuller called the IVM, or the isotropic vector matrix.
It is a mathematical curiosity that 7 hexagons can fit on a torus, so that every side of one hexagon touches the side of every other. The torus is a 3-dimensional projection of a 4-dimensional hypersphere. In the Samudra Manthana myth, Mount Mandara serves as a world axis, the central churning rod, but it begins sinking into the ocean of milk due to its immense weight. To stabilize it, Vishnu incarnates as Kurma, the tortoise avatar, providing a firm foundational base, directly paralleling the foundational element in polar mythology, here representing the turtle as a supportive pivot that prevents cosmic collapse and enables the churning process to continue. Polar Myth Element 5. Vortex symbolism and magical objects of plenty that could materialize abundance or destruction depending on their use. The Samudra Manthana myth draws from the everyday Indian practice of churning milk to extract butter or ghee, symbolizing the arduous spiritual effort to purify the mind and extract divine essence from life's ocean of experiences. Much like separating cream through rhythmic back and forth motion, the vortex symbolism arises from the churning whirlpool's effect, representing cosmic spirals that generate abundance or destruction, encoding themes of creation from chaos and inner transformation. 14 treasures emerge and are distributed. When Amrita appears, the Asuras seize it amid rising tensions. Vishnu transforms into the alluring Mohini, tricking the Asuras into letting her distribute it. She serves it only to the Devas. One Asura, disguised as a Deva, sips some, but is exposed by Surya and Chandra, leading Mohini to behead him, forming Rahu and Ketu, the north and south lunar nodes in Vedic astrology. Empowered by Amrita, the Devas battle the furious Asura. The Devas triumph, banishing the Asuras to Pataloka, the lowest realm in Hindu cosmology, and reclaiming heaven. Polar Myth Element 6. The avenging hero, prodigal son, or innocent fool, who overthrows corruption and restores balance. We've arrived at the last core element of polar mythology, the avenging hero, sometimes the returning prodigal son, or the underestimated innocent fool, who rises to defeat corruption, topple imbalance, and restore cosmic harmony. In these myths, this figure often appears unassuming, a trickster, a hidden redeemer, or a fool who wins through wisdom rather than force. Their role is pivotal. They realign the world axis, heal the effects of the fall, and bring back Dharma, or divine order. Tying back to our dreamlike reality idea, this hero represents awakened consciousness, integrating its shadows, collapsing chaotic possibilities into wholeness. When the churning unleashes halala, the deadly poison of ultimate corruption, threatening to destroy everything and skew the axis further, Shiva acts as the sacrificial hero. With deep compassion, he swallows the poison, holding it in his throat, causing it to turn blue. He absorbs the darkness himself, neutralizing the cataclysm so renewal can proceed. This is the prodigal son returning through self-sacrifice, mirroring how consciousness confronts and integrates unconscious chaos in the dream of reality. Then, as the Amrita emerges, the Asuras seize it. Vishnu, as Kurma the tortoise, he quietly supports the sinking Mount Mandara, becoming the stable foundation that prevents collapse, like the innocent fool, providing essential balance in crisis. And the decisive move, Vishnu as Mohini, the enchanting woman. She captivates the Asuras with beauty and illusion, tricks them into letting her distribute the nectar, then slyly gives it only to Devas. Through clever deception, Vishnu avenges the god's fall, overthrows Asura's tyranny, and restores equilibrium. I find myths interpreted as dreams interesting to contemplate. Is it possible that we have fallen from a higher reality into a lower one? And what does this mean for how we live our lives?